Good morning. Because the sermon from this morning's service, March 29th, was not recorded, I'm recording it here. I want to begin by saying it goes without saying that we are living in an unprecedented time. As I've been talking with members of our church family as we are early on in this time of coronavirus in this province, there is certainly concern. But there's also a sense of community and hope. We're hearing amazing stories of people reaching out to one another, caring for their neighbor, checking in on one another. Not far from where I live, I've seen Facebook posts talking of people sharing items in their front windows to brighten up the neighborhood. One person has been playing music once a week from their homes in order to cheer the neighbors around them. On my very own street, more people are out and walking dogs and practicing proper social distancing, are having conversations about how they're doing and how they're faring in this time. And as I wrote this sermon on Saturday, two women were having what seemed like a wonderful chat, one on one side of the road, one on the other, not caring about the cars and bicycles that were going in between them as they were checking in with one another. This happened right outside my window, and I was touched by the concern that they were sharing with one another. It's nice to see us connect with one another in old ways and in new ways, especially as human beings. As human beings, we're meant to be in relationship with one another. That I truly believe is God's intention. And it's one of the ways in which we demonstrate the goodness of God in creation that is in God's shalom. The first verse of the book of Genesis is translated in many ways, but this week I love the poetry of the Living Bible, which reads, "When God began creating the heavens and the earth was a shapeless, chaotic mass, with the Spirit of God brooding over the dark vapors." So there was chaos in the beginning. God was not only creating, but God was creating order in the universe. What was chaos began the slow, methodical process of becoming creation. And with each passing act of creating, more and more order came into being. First light and then darkness were separated, and yet together they form that first day. Then the vapors above became sky, and the ones below became oceans. And order is further brought, so that land and water each come into being, and so on, with plants and lights in the sky, in the form of stars, moon, and sun. Water and sky are provided with creatures, and finally land is given its creatures, including us, human beings. In that act, God creates human beings in the very divine image. The progenitors of all humans are created with God's image in their visage, and God's breath in their very nostrils. After increase in the order, God declares creation good. And at the end, after all that is created, it is very good, God declares. To humans, God gives a task. Like the others in creation, we are to be fruitful and multiply. But it says that we are to subdue the earth, to have dominion over it. And unfortunately, as a species, we have felt that this has given us charge of the planet. That we are to bring the earth under our power. And look what that's done for us so far. Many scholars believe that the translation that might better suit an understanding of dominion is one that brings order into creation. To continue the order that God has brought into creation is one of the tasks that those first humans are offered to do. We are asked to be in partnership with God and with all of creation so that we might continue God's work of bringing order into chaos. There is much disorder in our world today, and maybe it's because we have forgotten our role. One that's not so much to control creation, but instead to bring order. We are not masters over creation, we are partners. Partners called to continue with God the order of the world that God declared good and very good. I've said that I do not believe that the novel virus is a punishment from God visited on humanity. I do not believe in that sort of God. But maybe we are being shown that if we have a change of heart and direction, we can start anew our work in creation. We have, as a species, brought much destruction and chaos to our world, and there are those who have said it's too late, and yet we still see signs that creation is on a path of greater order. Since we have taken a break from some of our human activity, there have been amazing changes in our world. If you go on Google, you can look at a slide of the canals of Venice that are running far clearer than they have been in a long time. And in some of the images, you can even see fish on the bottom of the canal in the picture. There are photographs from various different places in our world that show the concentration of pollution has dissipated within the last 2 or 3 months since our increase in production of goods and such has decreased. Concentration over part of China has dropped dramatically. Does this mean that creation is healed because we have all become socially distant from one another? No, not by any means. But to my mind, it shows us hope. Hope that if we are truly able to see the goodness in creation, if we are truly able to live God's shalom in our world, then there is hope. Professor of Old Testament at Luther Seminary, Mark Thronveit, writes, Genesis 1 speaks of our relationship to God and our role as earthly representatives of God's rule may result in hearing it as a clarion to be responsible for the tending of the earth and each other. May we hear again God's declaration of the goodness, the very goodness of creation. And may we live God's shalom this day and in the days to come. May it be so. Amen. Thank you for listening to this reflection that I've offered today, and we will do our very best next Sunday to record the entirety of our service. Until then, and until we can be together again, God bless, and take care of one another.